I have a Jewish mother and a Gentile father, and I am Jewish.
Back at home, I really am not associated with a very Jewish crowd. Never really had a relationship with Jewish girls.
Kind of raised conservative, and I went to a private elementary school and a private preschool, Jewish school. And then, you know, I had a bar mitzvah. But since my bar mitzvah, I haven't really done too many Jewish activities.
I didn't have a very religious upbringing. I've been to a bar mitzvah and a seder.
During the war, my grandparents were in hiding in a nunnery, and my mother was born at the end of the war while they were in hiding from the Nazis. My father wasn't born Jewish, his entire family is Catholic.
Like we do Shabbat all the time on every Friday. But I don't go to I drive on Shabbat and I write. I got school, I got it right, so what can I do?
And when Rabbi Zeret was asking me, what do I keep? I kind of looked at him with this blank stare, like, what do you mean? What do I collect baseball cards? Like, what do you mean? And he said, no, do you keep kosher? And I said, oh, well, no. And like, do you keep Yom Kippur? No. Do you keep Rosh Hashanah? No. In fact, I didn't even know what any of these things were.
Before coming to the ship, I have very little Jewish background. I moved from Russia when I was 9 years old, and their religion in Russia is completely forbidden.
I'm pretty much the link between being Jewish and not being Jewish for the next 2 generations of my family.
Sarah, what's your last name? Sarah Angel. Are you going to start this school now?
Maybe you'll come Friday night to some chicken soup. Does you like chicken soup?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you.
So yeah, let me take your number.
How do we get students? Well, basically, UCLA has many thousands of Jewish students. We do something called tabling, there are tables set up on a walkway called Bruin Walk, and different organizations stand by those tables and tout their organization.
The main purpose of tabling is to reach out to the Jewish kids on campus and to get their names and numbers and call them. Every day, JAM is out on the campus at some of the craziest hours of the day, but the Jewish students are still there, and JAM is still there waiting for them, asking them, are you Jewish? Excuse me, have you heard about the JAM Center? And trying to reach out to them and bring them into a whole framework of what will be just the beginning.
We go on trips. Some of them are major trips, like our Israel trip and our New York trip, and those trips are phenomenally successful.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
NASDAQ is traded all over. Wherever the traders can set up their computer terminal is where they trade.
Basically, I'm an options trader.
When you hear, $99 for New York, that grabs your attention.
Mom, Dad, there's a Jewish New York trip, $99. I'm going. Everything's included. And my parents are like, yeah, right. You're going to have to go to New York, probably listen to some lecture about real estate, buy some real estate. Or you're probably going to have to take a bus there.
We went to Ellis Island. I found my grandfather's name on the wall, which is just, you really feel for it. Like, you know your grandfather was there, and he came through this place so many years ago.
Mandating there be an alternate day other than Saturday for any civil service tests, college boards, medical boards.
Now let's take a look straight ahead of us, and you'll see the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. That is where the Senate meets. Let's switch back on our left there, United States Supreme Court. Look to our right. And what you're going to see, and you can see it from there, that is the Library of Congress. That is the largest library in the world.
And the theme of the Korean War Veterans Memorial is that freedom is not free.
The Holocaust Museum I thought was incredible.
It was our people. I mean, there were times when I was in the museum and I was saying, oh my gosh, that could have been me. or that could have been my grandfather.
These past 2 days, I've learned so much about Judaism that I never knew before.
The rabbis and teachers I've met on the trip have been some of the coolest people I've ever met.
In all my years of going to Hebrew school and having my bar mitzvah and whatnot, I got a lot of questions answered on this trip that I never had the impetus to ask before. I got a chance to talk to some incredibly intelligent rabbis and incredibly intelligent human beings, and we just got into some very deep conversations about life, about God, about the Bible.
Some of the speakers are just amazing and really opening my eyes. I'm taking notes on everything.
How handsome you are. I'm enamored by your intelligence. But what's going to make the relationship work long term?
I've gotten so much out of it. I never thought I could learn so much more. I thought I've been learning my whole life about Judaism.
Is God going to treat him as though, like, almost ignore what he did in the past?
Shabin, Adam, Lamakom.
All the things we cannot do on Shabbos allow a new entity to emerge, which is a day of spirituality, a day of calm, a day of introspection.
I was really scared going into Shabbat yesterday. I was, worried that I'd do something that would, first of all, offend the family where I was staying because it wasn't their, if I did something in their house, that was against the Shabbat. But I found that it was so easy, and I had time, I guess, to rest and to just, I really feel like rejuvenated.
The joy and the excitement of the yeshiva students for Shabbat, it's as if Shabbat hasn't happened in 3 or 4 years.
Just everyone really wanted to Shabbos to come. Like I felt the vibe, I felt the essence that how much people wanted Shabbos to arrive. Let's make this great celebration to welcome this great holiday.
Shabbos, Shabbos, good Shabbos to you. Shabbos, 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 oh, Shabbos, all the night shining.
Life in Judaism, and especially with more Orthodox Jews, I've noticed seems more peaceful and more understanding, and I think I really want that in my family.
Everyone was just so friendly and so nice. Right when you think you found the nicest family, you go to another family and they're just so nice and so hospitable.
It was just so lovely, like being with them and learning about being Orthodox. It made me almost feel like I would like to almost try it out and see what that would be like.
It taught me what it's like and the pleasures of giving and the pleasures of a Jewish relationship, of Jewish friendship, of a Jewish home, of what God means to people and what God means to me. And I love it. I want to come back, visit my family, want to come back and learn how to make challah and learn more about Judaism.
The Shabbat in Monsey was beautiful. It was like heaven on earth. Those people lived like, it was like biblical times, I guess. They were so calm with the kids. No yelling, no screaming. Even with 8 kids in the house, people with 2 kids in LA go crazy. These people were just like, they just knew what to do. I don't know how.
I see the way they live their lives, and I see the happiness. I'm not sure if it's fake or if it's real, and I'm not sure if I can relate to that and if that can make me happy. Not that I'm unhappy right now, but I see that they have meaning in life.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Maybe I met one new Jewish friend my entire first year, but I felt I've met a great group of people here, and I felt I found a place at UCLA in JM that I feel like I can belong, and I want to thank you for that.
What can I say? The trip has been absolutely unbelievable. It's been 10 days that there's no way I'll ever forget.
I can't remember 10 days as fantastic as this. Actually, it wasn't really 10 days because very few of us actually slept, so it felt like 20 days. This has definitely motivated me to look more into Judaism.
It's really become like a strong, cohesive group of people who are really interested in learning and taking what they've learned and applying it to their own lives.
I'm definitely ready to learn it all because it's so interesting and it provides such a beautiful framework that seems to work. It seems to be proof of working in every home, in every person I've met so far. And I want to be a better person. I want to be a better person after this trip.
I cannot even put a price on the experience that I have learned from this trip. And I hope to continue it in Israel because if I can do this, if I can gain something like this in New York, I cannot even fathom what I can learn in the Holy Land.
we're very excited about this group. This is some of the 150 students who we took to Israel over the last few years. We took a group of 35 UCLA students this summer and last summer, and they came just to meet you. Not to meet Kirk Douglas, they'll meet him too, but to meet you, the survivors. And we thought maybe you'll have a few words to tell them. They're all considering coming back to their heritage. Guy puts on tefillin every day now, which is amazing. He didn't do that before.
After I shower.
And this is Mihaela. Mihaela, come here for a minute. Mihaela never fasted on Yom Kippur. This Yom Kippur was the first Yom Kippur she fasted, and she's been keeping every single Shabbos since she came back from Israel, okay? I think she was at the Unger's home, your daughter's home, for Shabbos. Let's see, who else do I want to introduce here? Brian, come here, Brian, just for a minute. This is Brian. He came, his bubby took him, he never had a bar mitzvah. And his bubby said to him, I want you to come to Israel. And so she paid for a trip, he should have a bar mitzvah in Israel, okay? And he was so inspired he wanted to come again. He came on that trip, and he decided after the trip to quit work on Shabbos. He used to work on Shabbos, he doesn't work on Shabbos anymore. This is Brian Brager. So I thought maybe you have a few words. Who has a few words?
Obviously, I think from all the experiences that I went through and many other people went through in the camps, in Auschwitz, or as in my case, in a bunker, hidden in a bunker, there's a couple of things that I learned, and I think that this is something which we always, number one is bitochen, never give up hope, because those people in the camps who gave up hope, those are the ones who didn't come back. Those people who had hope and emunah and trust in Hashem, those were the ones who were fighting. Say, they will come, we will all be free. And only those are the ones who survived. So hope and bitochen, no matter what the situation is. I know many of us go through good times, bad times, and through the years that I've lived here in America right after the war, I also went through good times and bad times. And I usually say when I go through bad times, I always have one thing I always say to myself. Was it better in the camp? Was it better in Auschwitz? Was it better in the bunker? So when I look back and I say, what's so bad? Whatever is bad, tomorrow is another day. So I think that these are the few points. Bitochen, hope, and always to be mistapik b'mu'et. Whatever you have to be happy with it, because it was not better in the time of Tzoris.
I am a survivor for many years. I'm one person left maybe in this world by surviving over 5 years, 18 camps. You name it, I have been in. Just one thing. When I went to the camp, when I was caught by the Gestapo, and as you know, there was here a war, was not a regular war, it was a Hitler war. So they took me that time to a prison. There was no camps yet. Later on, they started to build the camps. Just one thing. When they caught me and I left my parents, and I went with a destiny, and I said to my parents, I want for many children. I have younger sisters. The younger sisters remain with the mother. I was in that time 21, a little over. And my mother said to me, Max, they call me by my Jewish name, Menashe. She said to me, listen, you're older than 18. The children, I have to hold them the smaller. It's a war. What is going to be? I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. We don't know today what's going to be tomorrow. It was a very simple saying. Whatever you decide, God should be with you. And this is the time when I left my parents. I never seen them since that time. Also, when I came to the camp, and many people started to come, and we started to talk. And everybody used to say, it's not good. I said, if it's not good, I know. You know too. If it would be good, you wouldn't be here. So one thing what you have to remember, we have to live what we are, what we have been born. We have been born Jewish. We have been born with the Jewish faith. We have to believe in God. God is above us. How much is going to protect us? Who knows? Just don't give up. To giving up life, very easy. Everybody can give up life. Just you have to fight for every minute, for every day. Also, you have to be prepared to make decisions. Sometimes it happens a split of a second. Just don't give it up, live with betuchen. That means with hope. And if you're going to give it up, what is good about it? Miracles are happening. As you see, and I stay here, that I believed in God. I'm not real Orthodox. Just I'm in tradition, what I'm born. I'm going to stay with it. I believe in God and miracles. And God, help me by the miracles that I'm here today to speaking to you. Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce the people who just came in. These are some of the 150 students that we took to Israel this summer. See how sneeze they are? I just want to mention, this is Brandon. I don't know if you remember him from last year. He came on our last year's trip, and he's on his way to Or Sameach, which is very exciting to go learn. And I wanted to meet you to some finished products, if I could. This is Dina Kramer. She's already, her kids go to Torah Emes. She started out 10 years ago. Now she's totally a frum girl. She's frummer than me. And this is Lori Kramer, her sister-in-law, who we met separately, and she also became frum. And you have pictures of your kids? We do. I just want you to know. You see, we're very clear. We're very clear with our students that we want them to come here. She keeps Shabbos, she keeps kosher. She's a totally frum girl, and she works for the Federation. Okay, just want you to meet her. Who else is here? Robin Shanick and Stephanie Ash. Andrea Freeman, come here just for a minute. This was not easy for them to come and do this. Come here. Andrea Freeman, I have to brag like her mother would. She's a doctor, and she's a psychiatrist, an MD and PhD, right? Right. Okay, so be careful what you say. She became also, she was not religious when we met her, and now she's a frum woman, lives right in our community. These two young ladies, if you know a nice boy for them, they're also, they were not religious when we met them, and now they're good religious girls, okay? And Neva, come here a second. This is Neva. She came on our trip to Israel, and she just started keeping kosher at UCLA. And I don't know if you know what a big deal it is to keep kosher at UCLA. That means her parents paid for the food already, and she's anyways not going to be part of the meal plan, and she eats salad. She says to me, where's the meat? Don't religious Jews eat meat? But she's in charge, and Ariella too. Here's Ariella. She also decided to start keeping kosher, and they're in charge of our kosher club. We bring kosher food to the campus every week. That's Ariella. Oh, and Gina, you're going to speak, so I won't introduce you. Come here, Susan. Susan Roden and Peter Asanoff. They just kashered their homes, or on the way, and we have a class in her home. Peter's wife is a district attorney in LA, and Peter is Mrs. Asanoff. He learns every week, and he came with us to Israel also. And they're on their way. As soon as we find them kosher chocolate-covered raisins, they're going to be kosher 100%. Ronit Sadawi is one of our Persian students. We have a lot of Persian students, and she's totally a frum girl. I don't know if you know how hard it is when you're a Persian girl to break the usual and to become totally Shomer Shabbos, kosher, and that's Ronit, which is very exciting. And I thank you for meeting them, and you're welcome to go eat some food. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our Institute of Modern Anti-Semitic
Together with my wife, Bracha, I want to welcome everyone this evening. I don't have the words to express how special we feel that such a tremendous showing of support is here this evening. Isser Danilevich was born in 1916 to a traditional Jewish family. At age 14, he left Judaism to pursue a career in Hollywood. He would eventually become one of the greatest movie stars the world would ever know. He starred in 88 movies and received medals from all over the world. By secular standards, this man was a legend in his time. After a helicopter crash that would kill two men that were half his age, but spare his life, the movie legend was profoundly humbled. He began a search for the meaning of life. That journey would eventually take him back to where he started, to his Jewish roots. He now uses the Torah that he learns with Rabbi Nachum Braverman of Esha Torah to inspire thousands of secular Jews. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kirk Douglas.
Thank you very much. You know, when you have a stroke, you must talk slowly to be understood. And I've discovered that when I talk slowly, people listen. They think I'm going to say something important. But I have to say something important because for the past hour and a half, I have been signing my book, The Broken Mirror, which is about a little boy who sees the atrocities of the Holocaust and he decides, I don't want to be a Jew. I hope you will enjoy reading it. But because now you are going to see a film about 5 people who were also little children in the Holocaust, who also witnessed the unpardonable atrocities, but who never for a moment wavered in their commitment to their Jewishness or in their faith in God. It's an incredibly moving film. Believe me, I have seen it last week. It underscored for me that for most of my life, I took Judaism for granted. Although I felt drawn to the drama and the mystery of Judaism, other aspects pushed me away. I asked myself, what do I have in common with those black-headed bearded men with their musty books? And the answer was always nothing. But as time went on, I began to see it differently. C.S. Lewis said, pain is God's megaphone to wake up the deaf, to wake up a deaf world. And after I got a mega blast of God's megaphone, I was privileged to also be granted another chance. I started to study Torah. Now I'm probably the oldest beginning student of Torah in the world. But I'm here to tell you that it's better late than never. It has been an exciting journey for me. I have learned that Torah is the best movie script ever written. And what's best is not fiction, it's real. And I realize that I have to thank those people in the black hats for keeping Judaism alive for so long. For constantly reminding us that we Jews have a special mission to be the conscience of the world. But most of all, I realized that I needed to thank those extraordinary people, like the people in the film. In this film, what you will see, for keeping Judaism alive under the worst imaginable circumstances. I firmly believe that we are here because of you. And I thank you, enjoy the film, and God bless you.
September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. German troops marched through Europe and millions of Jews were trapped in the Nazi war machine. Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Treblinka, Dachau. The names are part of our national consciousness. Between 1933 and 1945, 2/3 of European Jewry was wiped out, herded into ghettos, stuffed onto cattle cars, in gas chambers, in death marches, in crematoria ovens. The horrific brutality practiced by the Germans against the Jews was not of this world. It was beyond inhuman. It was satanic. Many millions perished at the hands of the Germans, but the Nazis' most evil hatred was reserved for the Jews exclusively. The ferocity with which this crime was perpetrated was the ultimate of irrationality, the radical removal of every bit of moral restraint, the limitless inhumanity, the calculated reversal of all human values and feelings. The ideology of hate and brutality pursued and practiced by the Germans was not of this world. Nazi Germany was indeed afraid of the Jewish people. The fear made no sense in terms of material or political power. This hatred is inexplicable. In 1944, the German troops were in desperate need of supplies and ammunition. Top German officers urged Hitler to use railway lines to transport needed troops and equipment to the battlefront. Ignoring their warnings, Hitler gave orders to use the rail lines to deport hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews to the extermination camps. Hitler, it seems, regarded killing Jews even more important than winning World War II. How could one of the world's greatest military powers be afraid of the Jews? Why was Germany obsessed with killing Jews? Hitler himself answers this question when he writes in Mein Kampf, "It is true we Germans are barbarians. That is an honored title to us. I free humanity from the shackles of the soul, from the degrading suffering caused by the false vision called conscience and ethics. The Jews have inflicted two wounds on mankind, circumcision on its body and conscience on its soul. They are Jewish inventions. The war for the domination of the world is waged only between these two camps alone, the Germans and the Jews. Everything else is but deception." The purpose of the Nazi war was to dethrone God. These 5 individuals would not allow God to be dethroned. They held fast to their faith in the midst of the Nazi inferno. To these and all the heroes of the Holocaust who kept their faith, we salute you and dedicate this film.
But I do recall the wonderful times that we had. Like, for instance, Shabbos morning, going to shul with my father, holding his hand, sitting next to him in shul, listening to the prayers. On the high holidays, he would put the talis over me when they were duchening. I don't know how you explain that in English, but that's what he did. My mother, she was a very wonderful lady. I remember every Friday afternoon going along on errands where they were delivering food for the needy and for the sick. And it's 60 years later, maybe even longer, but I still do remember these things. It was very, very exciting for me.
The holidays were for us children happy times when we would not have any school, number one, and then spend the time, go to the rabbi's table, and where everybody would sing and dance.
I remember Passover, Pesach, that we the girls, we got up in the morning and we peeled the potatoes, and then my mother later on, she got up and she came and she was grading it because we were too little to do it. And then she was baking the so-called latkes. That's what by us in Passover. And it was delicious and beautiful, and everybody enjoyed it. And my father and brothers, they were in shul. And then they come home and they had that free, crispy, beautiful latkes, what they enjoyed. And they always brought home guests. Never was the house without guests. And you know, like my mother always, anybody comes in, right away sit down and fed them.
After the praying Friday night, usually was a lot of poor people, and every barbuas took in one poor guy or two poor guy to the house to eat whatever we ate. But when we came in to my mother with his sisters, my father blessed every child, Shabbos, to put the hand on the top of the head. He said, Yivrecho, Hashem v'yishmerecho. And this took at least a half hour praying and a little bit of crying, you know, and for blessing, you know, was really a Holy Spirit, you know, you feel the Shabbos, you could see the Shabbos and not see it, you know.
Just life was enjoyable. Even if you haven't got so much luxury to food, you know, like rich people actually could afford or somebody else, just whatever we have and whatever mother prepared, whatever was in the house, everything was enjoyable with sweetness, with heart, because what we have, and we have to be thankful always to God.
Once a man came from Germany. We didn't know that's from Germany, just, you know, right away my mother says, come in, you hungry, sit down and eat. And right away, sit down and fed him. And then he started to talk. He says, I'm coming from Germany, and they beating the Jews, and everybody's running.
It was just before my 9th birthday. And at first, we were terrified seeing all these soldiers marching into town. But after a while, we decided that war is war, and people do survive wars, and hopefully that we will survive too. But never in our wildest dream could we imagine what was awaiting us. I mean, right away they started on the Jews. And life has just became a nightmare.
Where we used to live not far away used to be a very big hospital before the war. And in this hospital was people, there were people, you know, had children, born children. So I went not far away from the hospital. I have seen that the Germans arrived there with trucks. And they went up to the hospital. And they took the little infant children away from the mothers. And they threw them down to the truck. As a matter of fact, they took them by the legs, knocked them against the wall, you know, and throw them down the trucks. I have seen it. My own eyes, I was not far away. Later on, they came back and took the mothers. When I was there, standing when they have seen on the roof, and I stayed there and I talked to myself. I couldn't scream. I couldn't help. I just could cry. I said, how can civilized nation like the German coming along and doing such a barbaric thing and taking little children and try to throw it, they just have been born, and throw them down to the trucks and kill them? How can this be? I talked to myself in my mind, the day will come, I will do anything what's humanly possible, if, to do and live for survival. And if I will survive, and I believe that in that time, and I talked that silently to myself, God, help.
My father, having been deeply involved with the refugees that came from Poland, was determined not to go into the ghetto, because the decree was that the day after Passover, all Jews from Munkac have to move into the ghetto. And he knew that moving into the ghetto probably means death. So we decided we were going to hide. The question was where to hide. So we had an apartment, and there was a cellar underneath.
My father was in his mind, he will not go away from the apartment. He will rather die in the apartment and take him to Auschwitz and gas him and burn him. And I said to my father, how can I go out? As soon as I put out my head, they will shoot. He said, Wattel, Yankee, don't be afraid. I promise you, you will survive. And he said to me, but be sure when you survive, you keep my youth out this and this date. He gave me the date, which I still keep, the date for the youth out. And he said, my wife, my mother was staying nearby, you keep this date.
About a month before Passover, we were working on that bunker to prepare it. And the plan was for two of our families to go down there. My father, my stepmother with 3 children, so we were 5. And then my uncle and his wife, which was my father's sister, and they had 4 children. So altogether we were 11 people. And the day, we still were at home at the Sidorim, at the Seder night. I remember that Seder night was something to remember, because it was sort of, you probably a Seder, you know, and you talk about we were once slaves in Egypt and how we are free. And as we were reading, we say, now we are free. Next week we have to go into the bunker, we have to go into the ghetto. And we say, now we are free. Maybe it's going to be the last Seder we will ever celebrate, but we must do something.
When I was separated from my family, I was at that time 21. And then, like I said before, you know, we have children, one was younger than the other one. And when I talked to my mother, and I didn't know when I will be caught, so my mother used to say us one thing, you know. I said, Mother, I can tell you one thing. In that time when I left, I went to another city, I wanted to go over where the Russians are. I said, simple, what you're going to hear from me. I'm hanged, I'm shot. Just I will not die for starvation. The answer from my mother. She said, Max, called by the name Menashe. I said, listen, it's a war. The children, what I have here, the small, have to keep with me. Whatever you decide, you're older than 18. God will be with you. Just whatever you decide, whatever you make the decision, God will be with you and do whatever you feel.
We arrived in Auschwitz We didn't know, where we go, what, but my father was a very bright man. They had those, they called, drop everything and just let's separate, and in the evening we go to see each other, you going to see each other. So my father says, kinderlich, let me say goodbye to you. We are not going to see each other anymore.
I was holding on to my father's side. They separated the men and the women, and being I had no mother anymore at that time, he was holding on to my hand. Out of the blue sky, a lady comes over and pulls me from his arms and takes me to the lady's side. I don't know who she was, and I never met her before or after that. But I see God's hand in that. If it wouldn't be for her, I would have gone directly to the gas chamber with my father.
We prepared some food, which was probably enough for 4 or 5 weeks. Once the 4 or 5 weeks were gone, we were really starving. And we started to ration. We found, for example, in the beginning, we had a bag of barley, raw barley. So my father started to ration the barley. Everybody got 3 barleys a day with water. Water we had plenty. And we had one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. And of course everybody went hungry, but we had nothing else to eat. And one particular incident which I always remember is when we were almost out of anything. We had nothing to eat, just water. One day my father said, well, we have salt, we have water, what are we going to do? So my father took some salt, put into the water, made a mix of salt water. And he says, you remember on every Pesach we used to have salt water and cut in some eggs and eat the salt water together with the eggs together with the salt water? Let's pretend that there are eggs in there and let's eat the salt water.
We didn't have too much free time because at 4 o'clock in the morning we were already lined up, counted, and we had to go to work in quarries where we were chopping rugs. And I think Sundays, I think we were off because the German guards, they needed a day off. So we just sat around on our bed bunks and we were talking about our homes, about our families, about the holidays, about the wonderful food that we ate. We were overstarved. And the only way we kept going is by talking food. We just cooked with our mouth, We just kept cooking with our mouth. What our mothers cooked and what our mothers baked and what our grandmothers did. And that just kept us going.
We were sleeping, the 3 barrack on those. So 14, 7 like this and 7 like that. And we, the 3 sisters, everybody wanted to sleep next to my mother, my little sister. It was sometimes we said maybe would be better if we wouldn't be together, because we had a little bread, didn't know who to give, my mother or the little sister. Then I felt bad that I slept next to my mother and that I didn't let my sister sleep next to her. And then you heard just crying, everybody was crying. Everybody cried all night, they were crying for the Rabbeinu Shalom, help us.
While we were in the bunker, we had, a number of times we had several dilemmas, how to handle things. One of the dilemmas came up when little children who were 3-4 year olds, and we knew that the Gestapo moved in upstairs into the apartment, and they are there, and we had to be very, very quiet. And we told them they have to be very quiet, but a baby starts crying. What do we do when a baby cries? So we decided, if a baby cries, we just put a pillow on his head to make sure that his voice is not heard. And if he doesn't stop, whatever will happen. If we can't sacrifice 10 people for their one baby, unless the baby will stop crying, we just have to keep the pillow there, even if, God forbid, the child cannot continue. And this was one of the big dilemmas, but they were so trained already, the children, that they understood that you got to be quiet. It's We got to save our lives. We got to be quiet, not to be heard upstairs. And we were able to do it for 3 months, to be there and not to be caught.
We always believe in praying, in davening. We believed in God. Even we saw the gas chamber with the chimneys going, the back smoke and everything is unbelievable.
We prayed a lot. Of course, we didn't have a siddur to pray with. We had nothing. We had no possessions. We didn't even have underwear. We didn't have a sweater. We had a striped uniform. That's all, in the bitter cold of Poland. We had nothing. But we remembered our prayers by heart. And you don't have to pray in a prayer book. You just pray to God.
There was a couple girls who they sang beautiful, So we were in the evenings lying down on the bed, and the 2 girls, they got up and they were singing. What do you think? Always just a religious song. Where should I go and when I'm coming home? It's a very beautiful song, Jewish. That's all what you heard. They were all the religious girls.
People used to talk to each other, As how people are. Sometimes they come out bed, they don't believe anymore. There was many people gave up their life and just really fall like flies.
Those people wasn't religious people. And they were the first one to go. As soon as they came in, it didn't take a week or 2, they died. Those people what didn't have God in their heart couldn't survive it because it was impossible.
They were disgusted, and they said, there is no God. Oh, they said it a few times, there is no. And they were sure they're going to die. And they didn't want even to leave. They gave up. They didn't fight anything for anything. They gave up. He says, it's enough. Lot of them.
And there was a lot of people ready to give away their life for Kiddush Hashem with a smile. And I wasn't afraid.
You didn't hear anything from us, just, Gott hat helfen. God hat helfen. We're going to go home. We're going to survive. We're going to be okay. Some like it's naturally. There was some, maybe they're going to kill us. Maybe next day is over. Maybe this. But always, God hat helfen. God going to help.
I mean, this was the only thing really what they always have in mind. We have to, like we said, we have to help ourselves and God will help to it. And we believed in God. We did. We believed in the religion because you have the best evidence. We tried wherever was a holiday or whatever it is what we could in a silent way to do the prayers. And in the prayers, God is not eliminated. So that was our actually aim and pray always, every day. God help, we have another day.
All of a sudden, April the 30th in the morning, we were sitting outside of a wagon, came an American Jeep to us. And I was there, and he asked, who speaks Yiddish? It was a Jeep with 4 soldiers, one was a captain, they all were Jewish. And this is the first minute where we got liberated. And I said to him, are you a Yuanuva? Because I couldn't believe it. How else can he come if he's not a Yuanuva? We couldn't believe it, but this was. And those SS, they didn't run away. They were still with the machine guns watching us till they came later on. And he gave me a pair of tefillin. And I still have those. My daughter knows I still had that tefillin. And the same day I put on that tefillin the first time after a year. General Eisenhower came in right away to us, and he asked what we need. The main thing was that we need a kosher kitchen and a kosher food. 3 days later, we got everything what we asked for it. So we were bounded, wasn't awake from the liberation. We were already back to the religious.
If God created a world, and He guides the world, and He brought on us a Holocaust which we couldn't understand, which we still can't understand. And I don't think anybody could find a real answer to that. How could so many good people die? Does it mean that because we don't understand it, that it's not true? We don't understand the plane flies and it flies. We don't understand how God guides the world. But that's the way He guides it. He knows what He's doing. He has a plan.
Everybody asking, how did you survive, you know? They asking, how? It's very hard to answer it. You know, hard to answer it, that how the belief or but again, God helped me, gave me the sense. I think so.
I always believed God, miracles, and always, like my parents used to say, God will help us. It looked like the God helped me. And I believe in God and I believe in miracles. And that's what I'm here today.
And in our darkest hours, my father always told us we should believe in Hashem, that He will not let us down.
And after the war, sometimes thought, why don't we just throw everything away? There is no God, it's impossible. But then we felt that by doing that, we are only going to play into Hitler's hand. He wanted to kill the Jewish people. This way he's going to kill the Jewish people, because if we throw away religion, there is not going to be any Yiddishkeit, any Jews left.
Like I said in the beginning, when the war broke out, what I have seen about those little infant children, if God is going to give me my life, only thing what I'm going to do, I do everything what's humanly possible. And I'm going to do to keep up as much as humanly possible the Jewish heritage. Should not be forgotten. And that's actually when I was liberated, and I started after the war, and I do whatever I can in doing in organizations, in helping, in building schools, in yeshivas, you know, in keeping up everything, whatever has to do with the future, with the Jewish heritage, that the Jewish heritage should not be faded out. This is my belief until I'm going to die, and I'm still doing it. And I'm going to do it until the last minute of my life.
I could not lose my faith. That's how I was raised. And that's how I would remain to the end of my life. As a matter of fact, when I was in Sweden, and I didn't even know that I have a brother alive, there was a Swedish older couple coming to visit me in the hospital. And they said, oh, don't worry, if you don't find anyone, we will adopt you. You can stay with us in Sweden. And I said, oh, thank you so much. You are so kind, and thank you for the cookies and the candy that you bring me. But I could not be adopted by anyone. I will stay with my people. I hope I will find someone in my family. But if I don't, I suffered for what I am, and I will continue staying Jewish all my life.
Whatever I do, I'm thank God that I did, and whatever I have, I said, it's not me. He helped me, and with His strength, I survived, and I am here, and I do, and I grew, and I am here, and I'm healthy. It's not me. You never heard from me that I did it.
The most important thing I learned in my life is that the most thing, you should be happy. You shouldn't look what other people have. Don't envy people. Just to be happy what you have and thank God what you have. Don't look up, look down. Some other people have less or worse off than you are.
We students would like to share their stories with our 5 heroes and all of you who are gathered here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Helen Sarloui, Gina Mamalak, and Mihaela Margolis.
I'm the daughter of Dutch Jews who against all odds made it through the Holocaust. One hidden and one with false papers. Leaving Holland orphaned after the war for a country where they knew no one, had no community, but were afraid. Sorry. Leaving Holland orphaned after the war for a country where they knew no one, had no community, but were afraid to stay in their homeland for fear that they would be persecuted again. After having lived in Peru and Italy, my parents decided that we should go back home to Holland, where my brother and I were the only Jews at our school and in the neighborhood. Either because of fear or lack of knowledge, I was brought up in a secular household, where the only holidays that we celebrated were Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. My parents were married after the war in Holland in a simple ceremony, in a simple civil ceremony, because they were afraid to show their Judaism. 35 years later, after a long struggle with cancer, my mother found her faith again. A rabbi from Holland came to visit us in Los Angeles. As my mother lay on her deathbed, too weak to stand, with my father at her side, they were married under a chuppah. I will never forget what this meant for her, for my father, or for myself. Here, I'm getting remarried in 2 weeks. I am getting married under a chuppah, in a ceremony officiated by Rabbi Zeret, in accordance with Torah law. I'm learning with Robin Goldberg on how to keep a Jewish home, if my mom could see me now. I have 2 children of my own who I want to teach Yiddishkeit to. My mother's no longer here to teach me. I have to reach out and learn myself to be able to teach them. Thank God, I do have community and I do have the resources now. I'm not afraid of showing my Yiddishkeit. I just don't know how. But because people like my parents and the honorees tonight, who had the strength and the courage not to give up, there are people like Bracha Zeret and Ashreinu who I can reach out to find someone to come to my home to learn with my children, and have Rabbi Goldberg come to my house and teach myself, my fiancé Howard, and my friends all the things that my mother didn't have the time to teach me. Thank you all who had the strength to go through what you went through and still kept the passion for Judaism, so that I, my children, and future generations can still learn, if my mom could see me now.
About 6 months ago, we felt a small earthquake in the middle of the night. My husband talked to our kids the next morning about what to do if there was ever another earthquake. He told them, if you feel an earthquake, you should immediately go and stand in a doorway. He gave them a very technical explanation of doorways and how they are the strongest structure in the house and therefore the safest place to be. Our 5-year-old daughter immediately stopped in and said, "No, Daddy, that's not the reason we go to the doorway in an earthquake. It's because the mezuzah's there." Our daughter's comment touched us in a very powerful way because true Jewish spirituality was still very new for us. I grew up a Reformed Jew in a wonderful family with a very strong cultural Jewish identity, but I didn't really ever understand why people had to go to shul, eat certain foods, or dress in a certain way. I personally felt inconvenienced by the Jewish rituals, and they lacked meaning to me. Having children was a major turning point in my life. I knew that as a parent, it was my job to instill values in my children and to help them search for meaning in their lives. I tried to figure out what life would feel like for my kids growing up in this era, in this time, in this society. It was clear to me that status, self-absorption, and a complete lack of concern for others had really become the norm in this world. It was our 5-year-old daughter again who was responsible for a very defining moment in my decision to learn more about my own spiritual heritage. One night, as I was putting her to sleep, she turned to me and asked, "Mommy, why do people have to die?" Her question really surprised me, and her question really forced me to think. At that point, I was already a practicing attorney, my husband a practicing neurosurgeon, yet neither of us were able to answer a question like that one. Our Ivy League educations couldn't help us in the face of one of life's most profound and important questions. We both lacked the spiritual and religious understanding of how to respond to our daughter. And so I embarked on a journey to educate myself. My family and I signed up for an ashreinu Shabbaton in Ventura. On this Shabbaton, we were able to experience a true Shabbos. The davening was done on a beginner's level, and there were learning sessions with rabbis and rebbitzins. I will never forget the 15 Beis Yaakov girls who helped with babysitting that weekend. With strong religious upbringings, these 17-year-old girls were already filled with a level of serenity, kindness, and dignity that I had never seen in girls their age. These young women were not superficial, they were not self-absorbed. Chesed and doing for others seemed to fill them with purpose and a way of life for them. A way of life preserved for them and handed down to them by people like those honored here tonight. Since then, I've taken many ashreinu courses, and just 2 weeks ago, I went on another ashreinu Shabbaton in Hancock Park. To be a guest in the home of an observant family is itself inspiring, where particularly on Shabbos, absolutely nothing is taken for granted, where every act involves acknowledging and appreciating that which we have rather than focusing on what we don't. My family and I continue to slowly incorporate more halacha into our daily routine, and it has indeed been a long journey requiring time and tremendous dedication. Even learning to read Hebrew was such a struggle for me. After years of education, going back to a first grade level was very humbling. But now, being able to say the Shema in Hebrew to my children at night means the world to me, and hopefully to my children as well. I am proud to say that we just enrolled our children at Emek, an Orthodox Jewish school in the Valley. This was a very difficult decision for us, but the rewards have really been overwhelming. To those heroes whom we pay tribute to here tonight, we honor you and your unrelenting faith in the darkest of times. May you also have faith in me that the Jewish tradition that you have held on to and given to your children will always be in my home and a part of my life as well. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Mihaela Margulies, and I'm a student at UCLA. I'd like to talk to you about my great-grandmother Miriam. She's someone I never knew, but lately I feel as though she's speaking to me. Who was this woman I've heard so much about, the rock of our family, who endured many hardships for the survival of her future generations? Great-grandma Miriam came to this country from Poland in 1888. She was 18 years old. She got on a boat with her 8 siblings, not knowing if she'd ever see her parents again. It was Miriam's dream which carried her to a land where she'd heard the streets were paved with gold. What was it about this country that she fought so hard for, almost losing her life for that one chance on American soil? America, for my great-grandma, was a place where Jews could live secure, dignified lives with equal access to education and financial prosperity. I stand here before you, one of Miriam's 9 great-grandchildren, and I'm very sorry to say that 8 of the 9 have intermarried. Could she ever have imagined that assimilation would go this far? I wonder how she would feel now. Great-grandma Miriam, has this family lived up to your expectations? We have succeeded in so many ways since you brought us here, given opportunities you could never have imagined. But what was your American dream? You surely wouldn't have turned to such a dream if you knew it would be at such a price. I grew up in a beautiful home in Connecticut and attended a well-known prep school. Grandma Miriam I had everything. But I'm so sorry to say, I never fasted on Yom Kippur. I never knew a kosher kitchen. And I never experienced even one Shabbat. We had so much. We were living your dream, but we lost you somewhere along the way. A few short months ago, while walking to class at UCLA, I heard Israeli music. I walked over to Heshi Merilis and his band, playing for Ashreinu, and before I knew it, I was asked to join the Ashreinu group in Israel. I remember the event so vividly. I think great-grandma Miriam was watching over me that day. The next 2 months were spent dodging calls from Bracha Zaret, knowing the Israel opportunity was too good to pass up, but hesitating because of so many other responsibilities here at home. Finally, she asked me to join her and Cassie Alter for a women's learning group with Rabbi Goldberg. I agreed. The classes took me by surprise because the Jewish learning was so practical. It went without saying that I needed further learning in Israel, but what shocked me was that I actually wanted further learning. Through the summer trip to Israel, I found something which had been lost in my family for 4 generations. I am so happy to say that I will not let it go. I have found a dream. Thank you, great-grandma Miriam, for guiding me toward your dream. Stepping onto Israeli soil for the first time this summer, I heard your voice. I joined Ashreinu with 35 other UCLA students to learn in yeshiva for 4 weeks. Since my return, I've heard your voice every Shabbat. This year I fasted on Yom Kippur for the first time. I've been learning with 25 other UCLA students weekly, and it has been through this incredible community that I have been and continue to be inspired. Great-grandma Miriam, I hear your voice through families that I've met, like the Zarets, the Gottesmans, the Horowitzes, the Kleins, the Shapiros, the Uris, the Byrons, and the Ungers. And as I stand in awe before these 5 survivors tonight, I hear your voice loud and clear. Great-grandma Miriam, I promise you and every one of these survivors that your struggles were not in vain. Our beautiful Jewish heritage will continue with me. Thank you.
She didn't tell me she dodged my calls. How you doing? Okay, anyway. Isn't she amazing? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Before we close our evening, and one of our survivors makes a few closing remarks, I want to give some good news to our survivors and all you gathered here to honor them. The triumph is young Jews are coming back to Judaism. If I could have the lights, please, the house lights up. I call a few Ashreinu students who are coming back to our Jewish heritage to join me on the stage to pay tribute to our survivors. Are the house lights up? I ask the students to please come to the stage so we can pay tribute to our survivors. All UCLA students and students of Ashreinu who come to Ashreinu classes and feel they're growing and Ashreinu is making an impact on their lives. People who are keeping kosher, starting to keep Shabbos, who come to our classes weekly, who are learning and growing. This is a reason to be happy tonight. This is a reason to be uplifted tonight. To our survivors, we pledge to continue reaching out and spreading Torah Judaism. There was Bikur Cholim, there was Hafnasas Kala, taking care of Aniyim, But Kiruv Rechokim, outreach was not a necessity. In this day and age, Kiruv Rechokim has become part of our Jewish consciousness. Oh, okay. I want to introduce you to a few people here tonight. This is going to be fun. I want you to meet, some people heard this in the back room, forgive me, but I can't believe she came. This is Dina Kramer, who we met, I don't know, 10 years ago. She's firmer than me now. She has 4 children, Kanaina Haaretz, who are in Torah MS. And Lori Kramer, her sister-in-law, who agreed to come here and honor you tonight. These are people who are coming back. Joelle Keaton, oh, she said not to say her name, words. Guy, this is Guy DeVere. Do you want to tell them what you do every morning?
Brush my teeth.
He came with me to Israel, and he came for 4 weeks, and then he came back, and he's putting on tefillin every day, and he keeps Shabbos every week. Let's see, Ron Shea, come here. This is Roma Shea, many of you know her. She wants everyone to know, who did you start out with? With Bracha and Kathy. I love ashreinu. Susan Roden has a class in her home, and she just kashered her home, right? Okay, just kashered her home. That's amazing. Okay. Oh, she's shy, but we have a doctor in the house. She's a psychiatrist, a doctor, MD, PhD, is that right? Yeah. Okay, she started out with ashreinu. Just want you to know. Okay, and this is Brian Brager. I think he's amazing. Isn't he a clean-cut boy from UCLA? This is Brian Brager. Brian Brager, I told some people before, his grandmother took him to Israel and he came again with us. He actually answered an ad in the paper. Nobody does that, but Brian answered an ad. He's an amazing, amazing guy. And do you want to tell them what you started doing when you came back from Israel?
I stopped working on Fridays and Saturdays so I can try to keep Shabbos.
Isn't that amazing? Oh, I appreciate these ladies. These are our frum contingent who became frum through ashreinu. They're now totally observant, as you can see. This is Susie Miller and Glenna Rosansky, Stephanie Ash. These are the girls we're still working on. No. We have a few. We want to mention our sisters and brothers from Edut HaMizrach, Persian girls. This is Ronit Sadawi and Racha Shamsi, who are totally from today. And they're going to help me with Sadah and Sharona. I guess that's it. And I want you to know these kids came from very far, and we appreciate them. Okay, and there's Brandon. You remember him from last year? Okay, Brandon. I told you to know he has a ticket in his hand to go to he's going to Or Sameach. When, Brandon? In January. Right, in January, he's going to Or Sameach to study in yeshiva, and we're very excited. Thank you. I'm going to ask all the students to stay here, and I'm going to introduce a representative of our survivors, Mrs. Gloria Unger, to say a few words to us and close our evening.
Tonight's event has been built as a tribute to the heroes of the Holocaust. In my opinion, it is those of you among us who have returned to Yiddishkeit are the true heroes tonight, and it is to you that we should be paying the tribute. I was fortunate to have been born into a warm and observant family. My parents of blessed memory imbued our home with love of Torah, mitzvos, and fellow Jew. This legacy is what afforded me the strength to keep on going, even when logically speaking, it would have made considerable more sense to give up. Many of you here with us tonight were not so fortunate as to have been brought up in this kind of environment. Like our forefather, Abraham Avinu, who was not brought up knowing how to serve Hashem, you have come to the decision to become observant Jews. You have made difficult changes in lifestyle and mindset in order to become observant. And for this, you deserve our respect and admiration. The Holocaust took place over 52 years ago. Each and every day of life that God has given me since has been a very special day. The Rebbeinu Shel Olam has blessed me with a wonderful life, and I'm very happy, and has given me much naches from our wonderful children and grandchildren. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to thank Hashem publicly for saving my life, for saving the life of my wonderful and loving husband, and for saving the life of my only surviving dear brother, Jack. I would also like to thank my wonderful sister-in-law, Gita, my sister-in-law, Susan and Armand, and my wonderful nieces and nephew, my wonderful friends that are here tonight, my relatives, and all of you who have come here tonight to work in this wonderful endeavor. Thank you so much.